Ooh, I thought I turned that off. Either way, good morning. It is Read the Bible in a Year. We're in Second Chronicles, reading chapters 32 and 33. Let's just dive in. If you're following along in the scriptures, it's page 909. If you're in any other translation, I don't have the slightest idea. So, there you go. Chapter 32. After these matters and this trustworthiness, Sanherib, sovereign of Asher, came, and he entered Judah and encamped against the cities of defense, and said to break them open to himself. And Hezekiah, sovereign of Sanherib, had come, and his face set to fight against Jerusalem. And he took counsel and his rulers and mighty men to stop water from the springs which were outside the city, and they helped him. And many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the stream that ran through the land, saying, Why should the sovereigns of Asher come to find much water? And he strengthened himself and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised it up to the towers, and outside of it another wall, and strengthened Millo, the city of David, and made large numbers of weapons and shields. And he appointed battle officers over the people, and gathered them to him in the open space at the city gate, and spoke to their hearts, saying, Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be cast down before the sovereign of Asher, nor before all the army that is with him. For with us there are more than with him. With him is an army of flesh, but with us is Yahweh our Elohim to help us and to fight our battles. And the people leaned on the words of Hezekiah, sovereign of Judah. And after this, Sanherib, the sovereign of Asher, sent his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself and all his power with him against Lachish, to Hezekiah, sovereign of Judah, and to all Judah who were in Jerusalem, saying, Thus said Sanherib, the sovereign of Asher, On what are you trusting that you remain in Jerusalem under siege? Is Hezekiah not persuading you to give yourselves over to die by scarcity of food and by thirst, saying, Yahweh our Elohim shall deliver us from the hand of the sovereign of Asher? Has not Hezekiah himself taken away his high places and his slaughter places, and ordered Judah and Jerusalem by saying, Bow yourselves before one slaughter place, and burn incense on it? Do you not know that I and my fathers have done all to the peoples of other lands? Were the mighty ones of the nations and those in any way able to deliver their lands out of my hand? Who was there among all the mighty ones of those nations that my fathers put under the ban, that could deliver his people from my hand, and that your Elohim should be able to deliver you from my hand? And now do not let Hezekiah deceive you or persuade you like this, and do not believe him. For no mighty one of any nation or reign was able to deliver his people from my hand, or the hand of my fathers, much less your Elohim, to deliver you from my hand. And his servant spoke even more against Yahweh Elohim and against his servant Hezekiah, and he wrote letters to reproach Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and to speak against him, saying, As the mighty ones of the nations and of other lands have not delivered their people from my hand, so the Elohim of Hezekiah shall not deliver his people from my hand. And they called out with a loud voice in the language of Judah to all the people in Jerusalem who were on the wall, to frighten them and to trouble them in order to capture the city. And they spoke against Elohim of Jerusalem. as against the mighty ones of the people of the earth, the work of men's hands. The sovereign Hezekiah the prophet, Yeshayahu the son of Amoz, prayed about this and cried out to the heavens. And Yahweh sent a messenger who cut down every mighty brave one, both leader and commander, in the camp of the sovereign of Ashur. And he returned shamefaced to his own land, and went into the house of his mighty one, and there some of his own offspring caused him to fall by the sword. Thus Yahweh saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sanherib the sovereign of Ashur, and from the hand of all others, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts to Yahweh at Jerusalem, and presents to Hezekiah, sovereign of Judah, and he was exalted in the eyes of all nations thereafter. In those days Hezekiah was sick and near death, and he prayed to Yahweh, and he spoke to him and appointed a sign for him. However, Hezekiah did not repay according to the good done to him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore wrath came upon him and upon Judah and Jerusalem. That's a big thing. He did not reciprocate the goodness, because his heart was, says, lifted up. I'd imagine there was some form of arrogance, pride, pompiety, Therefore wrath came upon him and upon Judah and Jerusalem. Then Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart. There you go. The very next verse. It clears it up every time. Humbled himself for the pride of his heart, and he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of Yahweh did not come upon them in the days of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah had much riches and esteem, and he made for himself treasures for silver and for gold and for precious stones and for spices and shields and all the desirable utensils, and storehouses for the harvest of grain and wine and oil, and stalls of all its kinds and livestock, and folds for flocks. And he made cities for himself, and possessions of great numbers of flocks and of herds, and Elohim gave him much property. And Hezekiah himself had stopped the upper outlet of the waters of Gihon, and directed them to the west side of the city of David. And Hezekiah prospered in all his work. However, with the envoys of the princes of Babel, whom they sent to ask him about the wonder that was done in the land, Elohim left him in order to try him to know all that was in his heart. Princes of Babel came, and they were sent by the Father to test what was in Hezekiah's heart. That's, man, to be tested by the Father. That's sobering. Gotta constantly be checking ourselves. So Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and they buried him. Verse 32. And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his loving commitment, see, they are written in the vision of Yeshayahu the prophet, son of Amoz, in the book of the sovereigns of Judah and Israel. So Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the upper burial sites of the sons of David, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem esteemed him at his death, and Manasseh, his son, reigned in his place. Chapter 33. Manasseh was 12 years old. Pause. Coffee break. Good cup. There we go. Now, back on chapter 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, according to the abominations of the nations whom Yahweh dispossessed from before the children of Israel. For again he rebuilt the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down, and raised up slaughter places for the Baals, and made Asherim, and bowed himself to all the host of the heavens, and served them. And he built slaughter places in the house of Yahweh, of which Yahweh had said, In Jerusalem is my name forever. And he built slaughter places for all the hosts of the heavens in the courtyard, in the two courtyards of the house of Yahweh. And he made his sons pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and practiced magic, and used divination and witchcraft, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of Yahweh to provoke him. All of these things Scripture reports as an abomination to the Father. Witchcraft, a divination, consulting mediums. He says they're evil for a reason. Verse 7. He placed a carved image of the idol which he made in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim said to David and Solomon his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of the tribes of Israel, I put my name forever. No more shall I remove the foot of Israel from the soil which I have appointed your fathers, only if they guard to do all that I have commanded them according to all the Torah, and the laws and the right rulings by my hand, and the laws and right rulings by the hand of Moshe, or Moses. Thus Manasseh led Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem astray to do more evil than the nations whom Yahweh had destroyed before the children of Israel. And Yahweh spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but they did not listen. Therefore Yahweh brought upon them commanders of the army of the sovereign of Asher, who captured Manasseh with hooks, bound him with bronze shackles, and made him go to Babel. And when he was in distress, he sought the face of Yahweh his Elohim, and humbled himself greatly before the Elohim of his fathers, and prayed to him. And he was moved by his entreaty, and heard his supplication, and brought him back to Jerusalem into his reign. And Manasseh knew that Yahweh was Elohim. How many times are we caught in a situation like that, where we blatantly are in apostasy and go directly against the face of the Father, and then we humble ourselves and return back to him, teshuvah, repentance, and he relents. That's awesome. I lost my place. Let's see. And Manasseh, verse 13. Okay, so verse 14. Sorry about that. And after this, he built a wall outside the city of David, on the west of Gihon in the Wadi, and as far as the entrance of the fish gate, and it went round Ophel, and he made it exceedingly high, and he put army commanders in all the walled cities of Judah, and he removed the foreign mighty ones and the idol from the house of Yahweh, and all the slaughter places that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahweh and in Jerusalem, and he threw them out of the city, and he built the slaughter places of Yahweh, and slaughtered slaughterings of peace offerings and thank offerings on it, and ordered Judah to serve Yahweh Elohim of Israel, But the people were still slaughtering on the high places, though only to Yahweh their Elohim. They're not supposed to be slaughtering on foreign altars, foreign high places. As a matter of fact, there's portions of the Torah that state that you're not even supposed to build a high place. If you're building an altar, it's going to be flat. That way, the word says, so that your nakedness is not uncovered. Somebody can't just look up your tunic or whatever the thing is that they're wearing, and uncover their nakedness, right? All right. In verse 18, and the rest of the acts of Manasseh, his prayer to his Elohim, and the words of the seers who spoke to him in the name of Yahweh Elohim of Israel, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel. And this prayer and his entreaty and all his sin and his trespass, and the places where he built high places and set up the Asherim and carved images before he was humbled, see, they are written among the words of the seers. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and his son Amon reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, as his father Manasseh had done, and Amon slaughtered to all the carved images which his father Manasseh had made, and served them, and he did not humble himself before Yahweh his father, or before Yahweh, as his father Manasseh had humbled himself, for Amon trespassed more and more. And his servants conspired against him, and killed him in his own house. But the people of the land struck all those who had conspired against sovereign Amon. And the people of the land set up his son Yoshiyahu to reign in his place. All right. Tomorrow we wrap up 2nd Chronicles with chapters 34, 35, and 36. And that's going to be a longer reading. Tomorrow's going to be a longer one, so expect probably half an hour. Anyways, bless you. Shalom.